widowed, wounded. All she wanted was medicine for the pain. But she finds a millionaire who looks at her as destiny. "You were tailor-made for me," he whispers. She freezes, unsure whether to run or surrender. Tell me in the comments, which scene moved you the most so far? Staying with us helps this story continue. And subscribe, because the ending will surprise even those who have suffered for love. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 in the morning, as always. Marion opened her heavy eyes and felt her body protest the accumulated exhaustion. Another night of insufficient sleep, another day that began before the sun rose. She got up slowly, trying not to make noise so as not to wake Gabriel, her 7-year-old son who was sleeping in the next room. Their home was small, a 2-bedroom apartment in an old building in the Brooklyn neighborhood of New York City, but it was theirs. Or almost. There were still 15 years of mortgage payments left. Marion prepared coffee in silence, watching the still dark sky of the city that never fully sleeps through the kitchen window. At 32, she carried a responsibility on her shoulders that seemed greater than herself. 3 years ago, she had suddenly become a widow when her husband passed away, leaving not only fond memories, but also debts that she was still paying. She didn't like to think about it. There was no time for lamentations. Life demanded constant movement. She drank her coffee quickly, packed Gabriel's backpack with his snack and school supplies, and went to wake him gently. The boy opened his eyes and smiled at his mother, that smile that made everything worthwhile. He was the reason she woke up every day, worked 2 jobs and still found the strength to study business administration at night at college. Gabriel was her anchor and her purpose. After dropping her son off at school, Marion headed to work. She was an administrative assistant at a financial consulting firm called Almeida & Associates, located near 5th Avenue. The job was good, the salary reasonable, but never enough. Bills always seemed to grow faster than income. That's why, in her free time, she did freelance event organization and sold cosmetics to supplement her earnings. That Thursday morning, Marion arrived at the office with the feeling that it would be just another day like any other. She greeted her colleagues, turned on her computer, and dove into the routine of spreadsheets, reports, and phone calls. The morning passed slowly, as it often did when one was tired. At lunchtime, she quickly ate a sandwich she had brought from home and used the remaining minutes to review some college notes. It was in the middle of the afternoon that everything began to fall apart. Marion received a call from Gabriel's school. The secretary, with a kind but concerned voice, informed her that the boy had a fever and needed to be picked up immediately. Her heart pounded. She asked her supervisor for leave, grabbed her bag in a hurry and rushed out. On the crowded subway, squeezed between strangers, she prayed silently that it wasn't serious. She couldn't miss another day of work. She couldn't afford another expensive doctor's visit. She couldn't. When she finally arrived at the school, Gabriel was sitting in the infirmary, his face flushed and his eyes bright with fever. Marion hugged her son tightly, feeling his elevated temperature through his clothes. The nurse recommended that she see a doctor. Marion thanked her, picked Gabriel up even though he was already big for it, and went in search of a community health center. But the line was enormous, the wait would be hours. There was no time. She decided to go straight to a pharmacy to buy an antipyretic, and if necessary, take him to an emergency room later. The nearest pharmacy was 2 blocks from the school. Marion entered in a hurry, still carrying Gabriel's backpack in one hand and holding his hand with the other. The boy was quiet, leaning against his mother's leg as she waited to be served. There were a few people ahead. Marion took a deep breath, trying to control the anxiety growing in her chest. She looked at her watch. It was already past 4 in the afternoon. She needed to give him the medicine soon, take Gabriel home, and get him to sleep. And she still had class that night. Maybe she would have to miss it. Again. That's when she heard the voice, a deep, impatient male voice coming from the counter in front of her. A tall man, in an impeccable suit and imposing posture, was arguing with the attendant about a product. Marion couldn't see his face completely, but she could tell from his body language that he was irritated. The attendant, a young woman with her hair pulled back, tried to explain something, But the man interrupted her constantly. "I bought this cream yesterday, and now I realize it's not suitable. I need something better to give as a gift to an employee, something more sophisticated." The attendant, visibly embarrassed, tried to offer alternatives, but the man rejected them all with disdain. Marion felt her blood boil. There she was with her sick child, desperate for a simple medicine, and that man was making a scene over a gift. The line wasn't moving. Gabriel tugged at the hem of her blouse, his voice weak. "Mum, I have a headache." Marion stroked her son's hair and, without thinking much, stepped forward. "Excuse me." The man turned, surprised by the interruption. Marion finally saw his face. Dark brown eyes, sharp features, an expression that mixed surprise and irritation. He must have been around 40, maybe a little older. He wore an expensive watch on his wrist and had the air of someone unaccustomed to being interrupted. "Yes?" His voice was cold, almost challenging. Marion swallowed hard but didn't back down. "You're making a scene over a cream you're giving as a gift, while people here are waiting for truly important things. Perhaps you should think a little more about others and less about impressing employees with expensive gifts." The silence that followed was awkward. The people in line looked at Marion with a mixture of shock and admiration. The attendant's eyes widened. The man, for his part, stood completely still for a few seconds, as if he were processing what he had just heard. No one, apparently, spoke to him that way. He took a step towards Marion, and for an instant she thought he would respond with the same aggression. But then something changed in his expression. Irritation gave way to a kind of curiosity, almost amusement. "And what do you suggest, then, since you seem to know so much about the subject?" Marion felt her face flush. It wasn't her intention to get into an argument, but now she was in the middle of one. She took a deep breath and pointed to a shelf nearby. "A basic personal care kit. Liquid soap, hand cream, maybe a lip balm. Useful things that anyone uses every day. Much more. Practical than an expensive face cream that might not even be her skin type." The man followed Marion's gaze to the indicated shelf. He remained silent for a few seconds, as if he were genuinely considering the suggestion. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nodded. "Makes sense." He turned to the attendant and asked for exactly what Marion had suggested. The young woman, still stunned, rushed to get the products. The man didn't look at Marion again. He paid quickly and left the pharmacy without saying anything else, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and a strange atmosphere in the air. Marion was finally served, bought the antipyretic for Gabriel, and left as quickly as she could. On the way back home, with her son asleep in her lap on the bus, she wondered who that man was. There was something in his demeanor, in the way everyone in the pharmacy seemed to know him without him needing to introduce himself, but she quickly dismissed those thoughts. It didn't matter. She would probably never see him again. On Friday, Gabriel woke up feeling better. The fever had broken during the night and he was excited to go to school. Marion, relieved, headed to work with a little more peace in her heart. Her supervisor, Mrs. Helen, a woman in her 50s, was reviewing some documents when Marion arrived. "Marion, I need you to organize the files for Monday's meeting. We're expecting a very important client. Everything needs to be impeccable." "Of course, Mrs. Helen, you can count on me." The weekend passed quickly. Marion used Saturday to catch up on household chores and take Gabriel to the park. On Sunday, she studied for a college exam while the boy played with neighbors in the building's courtyard. The routine was exhausting, but there was a beauty in the simplicity of those moments. She didn't have much, but she had the essentials, or so she tried to convince herself. On Monday morning, the office was in a frenzy. The meeting with the important client was at 10 o'clock. Marion had prepared everything as requested, printed reports, organized folders, an impeccable meeting room. Mrs. Helen was nervous, adjusting her blazer for the 10th time and checking if everything was in order. "Who is this important client?" Marion asked, curious. "Raphael Maxwell Alistair, owner of Alistair Investments, one of the largest fortunes in New York City, and one of the most influential men in the financial sector." Marion nodded, but the name meant nothing to her. She returned to her desk and continued working, checking the final details of the documents to be presented at the meeting. At 9:45, Mrs. Helen asked her to take the folders to the meeting room and get everything ready. Marian obeyed. As she walked back down the corridor, she heard voices coming from the reception area. The secretary was receiving someone with extreme reverence. Marian, out of curiosity, took a discreet peek and felt the ground open beneath her feet. It was him, the man from the pharmacy. Raphael Maxwell Alistair was there, in a navy blue suit, talking politely with the secretary. He hadn't seen her yet. Marian felt her face flush and a wave of panic wash over her. That man was the important client, the influential millionaire. And she had confronted him, accused him of being insensitive, in front of several people in a neighborhood pharmacy. She wanted to disappear. She turned quickly and went back down the corridor, praying he wouldn't recognize her. She locked herself in the ladies' room for a few minutes, trying to regain her composure. Her heart was racing. Would he remember her? Would he say something? Would she lose her job because of it? After a few minutes, Marian took a deep breath and left the bathroom. She needed to get back to work, act naturally. After all, what she had done wasn't that serious. She had just given an opinion, and he had even agreed in the end. The meeting began promptly at 10 o'clock. Marian stayed at her desk, focused on her computer, trying not to think about what was happening in the next room. Mrs. Helen appeared around 11:30, satisfied. "It was excellent. He approved our proposal. Marian, I need you to take these documents to his office this afternoon. It's urgent." "Today? This afternoon?" "Yes, the address is here. He's expecting them by 3 o'clock. Marian took the paper with the address and felt her stomach churn. She would have to go there. She would have to see him again. There was no escape. At 2 in the afternoon, Marian took the envelope with the documents, checked the address, and left the office. The Alistair Investments building was located in the Wall Street area, one of New York City's most exclusive districts. She took the subway, then walked a few blocks until she reached the imposing mirrored glass building. The reception area was luxurious, with marble floors and modern artworks on the walls. Marian felt completely out of place. She announced herself at the reception and was directed to go up to the 22nd floor. In the elevator, she looked at her reflection in the mirror and tried to fix her hair. She was wearing simple clothes but clean and well-pressed. She had nothing to fear. It was just a document delivery. When the elevator doors opened, Marian was greeted by an elegant secretary who led her down a corridor to a large office. And there he was, sitting behind an enormous desk, reading something on his computer. Raphael looked up and saw her. For a second, he seemed not to recognize her. But then his expression changed. A slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The gift expert. Marian felt her face burn. He remembered. Of course, he remembered. "Mr. Alistair, I've brought the documents you requested." She extended the envelope, trying to maintain her composure. Raphael stood up and walked towards her, taking the envelope from her hands. His fingers brushed lightly against hers, and Marian felt an involuntary shiver. "Thank you. And about that day at the pharmacy, I owe you an apology." Marian blinked, surprised. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do. I was being an idiot. You were right. And the gift, by the way, was very well received. My employee thanked me more for that simple kit than she would have for the expensive cream." Marian didn't know what to say. She expected coldness, perhaps even some veiled retaliation, but not that. Raphael seemed genuinely grateful. "I'm glad it worked out. How is your son? He seemed unwell that day." The question caught Marian by surprise. He had noticed Gabriel. "He's fine, thank you. It was just a fever. It passed quickly." "That's good." There was a brief silence, but not uncomfortable. Raphael returned to his desk and opened the envelope, checking the documents. Marian stood there, unsure whether to leave or wait for further instructions. "How long have you worked at Almeida and Associates?" 2 years. "And before that?" "I worked at a few smaller companies, always in administration." Raphael nodded, still reading the papers. "You're efficient. These documents are perfect. Well organized, no errors." Marian felt a slight pride but didn't show it. "Thank you. You can go." And again, thank you. For the gift and for the lesson. Marion nodded and left the room, her legs trembling. In the elevator, she leaned against the wall and exhaled the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That man was unsettling, arrogant and humble at the same time, powerful, but surprisingly thoughtful. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. She shouldn't think about him. He was just another client of the company she worked for. But on Tuesday morning, when Marion got on the crowded bus that took her to work, she saw a familiar face sitting a few rows ahead. Raphael Maxwell Alistair was there, in a suit and tie, reading something on his phone. On a bus. A millionaire on a bus. Marion frowned, confused. Could it really be him? She moved a little closer, pretending to look for a place to hold on. It was him, no doubt. And then, as if feeling her gaze, Raphael looked up and saw her. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, followed by a discreet smile. "Good morning." "Good morning," Marion replied, still surprised. "You take the bus?" "Sometimes. Traffic is impossible today, and my driver had an unforeseen issue. I found it more practical." Marion didn't know whether to laugh or be even more confused. He seemed completely at ease, as if taking the bus was the most natural thing in the world for a man of his position. The bus continued through the city, stopping and starting in the heavy morning traffic. Raphael went back to his phone, but every now and then he cast discreet glances in Marion's direction. She pretended not to notice, but she felt them. When the bus finally reached her stop, Marion got off quickly. To her surprise, Raphael got off too. "You get off here?" "Yes, I have a meeting in the area." They walked side by side for a few meters, in silence. Marion didn't know what to say. It was too strange. When they turned the corner, Marion realized they were going in the same direction. And then, when they arrived in front of the Almeida and Associates building, Raphael stopped. "It's here." Marion's eyes widened. "You have a meeting here? Again?" To another stage of the project." They entered the building together. At the reception, the secretary greeted Raphael with all the usual ceremony and cast a curious glance at Marion, who was beside him. Marion felt her face flush and quickly said goodbye, heading up the stairs to her floor. But throughout the day she couldn't get the strangeness of that encounter out of her head. 2 days in a row, crossing paths with Raphael Maxwell Alistair. It wasn't just a coincidence. Or was it? At lunchtime, Mrs. Helen called Marion into her office. "Marion, Mr. Alistair made an unusual request. He asked that you specifically be responsible for overseeing the progress of his project with our company. He said he was impressed with your organization and efficiency." Marion felt her heart pound. "But I'm just an administrative assistant. I don't have experience managing projects of this scale." He insisted. "He said you'll have all the necessary team support, but he wants you to be the focal point. It's a great opportunity, Marion. Don't let it pass." Marion left Mrs. Helen's office with her head spinning. Why had Raphael done that? What did he want? Was it some kind of test? Or worse, was he trying to take advantage of the situation in some way? Throughout the afternoon, she tried to concentrate on work, but her thoughts wouldn't stop. When it was finally time to leave, Marion gathered her things and went down to the reception area. To her surprise, Raphael was there waiting for the elevator. When he saw her, he smiled. "Coincidence, wouldn't you say?" Marion didn't answer. They entered the elevator together. As soon as the doors closed, she turned to him. "Why did you do that?" "Do what?" "Ask me to manage your project." Raphael looked at her for a few seconds before answering. "Because you're good, and because I need someone who's honest with me, not someone who just agrees with everything I say. You proved at the pharmacy that you're not afraid to confront me. That's rare and valuable." Marion didn't know whether to feel flattered or suspicious. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "No one is ever completely ready. But you'll do well. I trust that." The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. Raphael stepped out first and held the door for Marion to pass. They walked together to the building exit. Outside, the afternoon sun bathed the busy avenue. Raphael stopped and turned to her. "May I invite you to something?" Marion frowned, suspicious. "What kind of invitation?" "Dinner, to discuss the project. Nothing formal, just a quiet conversation to align expectations." Marion hesitated. All her instincts screamed to refuse. But there was something in the way he looked at her, a sincerity she couldn't ignore. "I need to pick up my son from school and we can have dinner another day then, whenever it's more convenient for you, no pressure." Marion took a deep breath. Maybe it really was just a work meeting. Maybe she was being too paranoid. "Friday. I can do Friday night. My son stays with a neighbor." "Perfect. Friday then. I'll send you the restaurant address." They said goodbye, and Marion headed towards the bus stop, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. What was she doing? She had accepted a dinner invitation from a millionaire she barely knew, but it wasn't a romantic date. It was work. She tried to convince herself of that while waiting for the bus. It was just work. Nothing more, but deep down a part of her knew she was lying to herself, because there was something about Raphael Maxwell Alistair that intrigued her, and as much as she tried to deny it, she was curious. Curious to know who that man was beyond his fortune and power. Curious to understand why he looked at her that way, and curious to discover where all this would lead them. The bus arrived, and Marion got on, sitting by the window. As the city passed outside, she allowed herself, just for an instant, to imagine what that Friday would be like. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something she had forgotten existed, a hint of anticipation, a spark of hope, something that wasn't just survival, but perhaps, just perhaps, the possibility of something new. Gabriel was excited when Marion picked him up from school that afternoon. He had gotten a good grade on a math test and wouldn't stop talking about it. Marion smiled, hugged her son tightly, and listened to every word as if it were the most important thing in the world. Because for her, it was. Gabriel was her anchor, her reason, her light amidst all the darkness. That night, after putting Gabriel to sleep, Marion sat at the small kitchen table with her college books spread out in front of her, but she couldn't concentrate. Raphael's image kept returning to her mind. The way he had smiled in the elevator, the sincerity in his voice when he said he trusted her, those brown eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. Marion shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. She couldn't afford to fantasize. Her life was practical, objective, with no room for daydreams. But even so, when she finally lay down that night, it was with a slight smile on her lips, and for the first time in a long time, she fell asleep thinking not about the next day's problems, but about the possibility of something different, something that might just be good. The days until Friday passed slowly. Marion immersed herself in work, studying every detail of Raphael's project, preparing reports and organizing meetings with the team. Mrs. Helen was impressed with her dedication. Some colleagues looked on with envy. Marion pretended not to notice. She was focused, determined to prove she deserved this opportunity. On Thursday night, while organizing her wardrobe, trying to decide what to wear the next day, Marion found herself overthinking. It wasn't a date, it was work. But she still wanted to make a good impression. She chose a simple navy blue dress, the prettiest she owned. It wasn't luxurious, but it was elegant in its own way. Gabriel entered the room and watched her with curiosity. "Mom, you look different." "Different how?" "I don't know. More happy." Marion smiled and hugged her son. "I'm always happy when I'm with you." "But you're happy in a different way, like when we go to the park." Marion kissed Gabriel's forehead and changed the subject. But her son's words echoed in her mind. Was she really different? Had a simple anticipation of dinner changed something in her? And if so, what did that mean? Friday dawned sunny. Marion woke up with butterflies in her stomach, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. She tried to stay calm, follow her routine normally. She took Gabriel to school, went to work, completed her tasks. But time seemed to stand still. When it was finally time to leave, she changed in the office bathroom, retouched her light makeup and left. Raphael had sent the address of an Italian restaurant in the Upper East Side. Marion took an Uber, spending more than she should have, but that night she wanted to arrive well. When the car stopped in front of the restaurant, she took a deep breath before getting out. The place was elegant but not ostentatious, welcoming with soft lights and discreet ambient music. Raphael was already there, waiting at a table in the corner. When he saw her enter, he stood up, and for the first time, Marion saw him without his formal suit. He wore a white, long-sleeved shirt, no tie with the sleeves, slightly rolled up. He looked younger, more relaxed, and incredibly attractive, she reluctantly admitted to herself. "You look beautiful." The words came out naturally from him, and Marion felt her face flush. "Thank you. You also look... well?" Raphael laughed, a genuine sound that surprised her. "Can we drop the mister? Call me Raphael, please." Marion nodded, and they sat down. The waiter brought the menu, and Raphael ordered a bottle of wine. Marion hesitated, but accepted a glass. The conversation started about the project, but soon drifted to other topics. Raphael asked about Gabriel, about college, about her dreams. And to Marion's surprise, he really listened. He didn't just wait for his turn to speak. He truly listened, asking questions, showing genuine interest. "And you?" Marion asked, encouraged by the wine and the atmosphere. "How did you get to where you are today?" Raphael was silent for a few seconds, swirling the wineglass between his fingers. "It wasn't easy. My family had a prosperous business, but my father, he made some bad decisions. We lost almost everything. I was in my early 20s when I took control and had to rebuild from scratch. Those were difficult years. Many sleepless nights, many painful choices." Marion watched him, seeing beyond the facade of success. There was pain there, scars he hid well. "But you succeeded." "I did, but in the process, I lost other things. Relationships mainly. It's hard to trust people when you have money. I never know if someone approaches me for who I am or for what I have." His words carried a loneliness that Marion knew well. It was a different kind of loneliness than hers, but no less real. "I understand. It's hard to trust when life has already disappointed you before." "Exactly." They looked at each other for a long moment, and Marion felt something stir within her, a connection, something that went beyond physical attraction, beyond social class differences. It was mutual recognition between two people who had fought, who had suffered, and who kept moving forward. The dinner continued for more than 2 hours. They laughed, shared stories, discovered common tastes. When they finally left the restaurant, it was past 11 at night. Raphael insisted on taking her home. His driver was waiting in a discreet car. During the drive they were silent, but it was a comfortable silence. When the car stopped in front of Marion's building, Raphael got out and opened the door for her. "Thank you for dinner. It was very nice." "For me too. Can we do it again?" Marion hesitated. This was moving too fast, but at the same time, she didn't want it to stop. "We can, but slowly, okay? My life is complicated. I have a son, responsibilities." "I know, and I respect that. We can go at your pace." Marion smiled and, on an impulse, stood on tiptoe and lightly kissed his cheek. "Good night, Raphael." "Good night, Marion." She entered the building and went up the stairs feeling light. When she arrived at the apartment, the neighbor who was looking after Gabriel told her that the boy had fallen asleep early and had behaved very well. Marion thanked her, paid for the help, and went inside. She went to Gabriel's room and stayed there for a few minutes, watching her son sleep. He was growing up so fast. Soon he would be a man, and she wanted him to grow up seeing that it was possible to start over, that it was possible to find joy even after pain. That night, Marion lay down with a full heart. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if things with Raphael would work out, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to try. She was willing to open her heart again, even with all the risks that entailed, because life wasn't just about surviving. It was also about living. And maybe, just maybe, she deserved to live too. The days following that dinner were a mix of anticipation and uncertainty for Marion. She returned to her routine with the same determination as always, but something had changed. There was a lightness in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time, a small flame of hope that insisted on shining even amidst daily challenges. Gabriel noticed the difference. Her son was observant like few others, and more than once he caught her smiling to herself while preparing breakfast or tidying the house. Raphael kept his word. He didn't pressure her, didn't show up unannounced, didn't invade her space. But he was subtly present. An occasional good morning message asking how she and Gabriel were. An email about the project's progress, always professional but with some personal comment at the end. Marion responded cautiously, maintaining a certain distance but secretly feeling happy with each interaction. At work, things were going surprisingly well. Marion had plunged headfirst into Raphael's project and discovered she had more capacity than she imagined. Her ideas were heard, her suggestions implemented. Mrs. Helen praised her constantly, saying she had found her calling. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Some colleagues began to make malicious comments in the hallways. They said she had only gotten that position because she had caught the eye of the important client, that she used her charm to get ahead in life. Marion pretended not to hear, but the words cut like sharp blades. It was on a Tuesday, almost 2 weeks after dinner, that Raphael invited her to lunch. This time, he was direct when he called. "Marion, I need to discuss some aspects of the project with you, but I'm tired of formal meetings. Can we have lunch together? A quiet place, no pressure." She hesitated for only a second before accepting. They agreed to meet at a small restaurant downtown, away from the curious eyes of the office. When Marion arrived, Raphael was already there, sitting at a table near the window. He stood up when he saw her, and Marion noticed that he looked tired. There were subtle dark circles under his eyes, and the tension in his shoulders was visible. "Are you okay?" she asked as soon as she sat down. "Just a difficult week. Many complicated decisions, a lot of pressure." Marion nodded. She ordered a simple dish, a salad with grilled chicken, while Raphael chose a steak. When the waiter left, he leaned back in his chair and watched her carefully. "You're handling the project well, better than many experienced professionals who have worked with me. Thank you, I'm doing my best. It's noticeable, and I also notice that some people in your office aren't being kind to you because of it." Marion felt her face flush. How did he know? "News travels fast in corporate environments," Raphael explained, as if reading her thoughts. "And I have ears in many places. Don't let it affect you. Envy is the price you pay for doing something right. It's hard to ignore when people insinuate things that aren't true." "And what are they insinuating?" Marion lowered her eyes to the plate the waiter had just brought. "That I'm using you to get a promotion. That I don't deserve to be in this position. That there are other interests beyond the professional." Raphael was silent for a moment. When Marion finally looked up, she saw that he was staring at her with an intensity that left her breathless. "And are there other interests beyond the professional?" The question was direct, without circumlocution. Marion felt her heart race. She could lie, deflect the subject, maintain the safety of denial, but there was something in his eyes that prevented her from doing so. There was vulnerability. There, a genuine need to know the truth. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "I'm confused. It's been so long since I allowed myself to feel anything other than responsibility and exhaustion. I no longer know how to recognize what I'm feeling." Raphael nodded slowly, as if he understood perfectly. "Then we're in the same boat, because I'm also confused. Since that day at the pharmacy, you haven't left my mind. And it's not just physical attraction, although that also exists. It's more than that. You challenge me, you question me, you make me think, and at the same time, you make me want to be a better person." His words hit her hard. Marion felt her eyes sting, but she blinked quickly to push back the tears. It wasn't the time to cry. Not there. Not yet. "Raphael, I have a son. My life is complicated. I can't just throw myself into something without thinking about the consequences. Gabriel has already lost his father. I can't bring someone into his life who might disappear." "I understand, and I don't intend to disappear. But I also know I can't promise eternity when we're still getting to know each other. What I can promise is honesty, transparency, and respect for your time and your choices." Marion took a deep breath. There was sincerity in his words. She could feel it. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to consider the possibility of not being alone, of having someone by her side, not as a lifeline but as a companion, someone with whom to share not only difficulties but also joys. "Can we go slowly?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "As slowly as you need." They finished lunch discussing lighter topics. Raphael told funny stories about disastrous meetings and eccentric clients. Marion talked about Gabriel's mischief and the craziness of balancing work and studies. Gradually, the tension dissipated, replaced by something more comfortable. Complicity. When they said goodbye at the restaurant door, Raphael gently held Marion's hand for a few seconds. "Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for understanding." He smiled and slowly let go of her hand. Marion returned to the office feeling light, but also scared. She was opening up to someone again, and that was terrifying, but perhaps it was worth the risk. In the following weeks, Marion and Raphael established a subtle routine, occasional lunches to discuss the project, but always drifting into personal conversations. Messages exchanged at night when Gabriel was already asleep and Raphael finally left the office. He learned about Marion's tastes, her favorite foods, her hidden dreams. She discovered that Raphael was a more complex man than he appeared, that he liked to read classic books, that he was afraid of heights, that he sometimes felt suffocated by the weight of expectations everyone placed on him. One Saturday, Raphael made a different invitation. He wanted to meet Gabrielle. Marion froze for a few seconds when she received the message. It was a huge step. It meant that this was becoming real, serious. It meant including her son in the equation. She replied that she needed to think, and Raphael, as always, respected that. That night, after putting Gabriel to sleep, Marion sat in the dark living room of the apartment and allowed herself to truly think about all of it. About Raphael, about what she was feeling, about what it could mean for the future. She was afraid, very afraid. Afraid of getting hurt, afraid of hurting Gabriel, afraid that it was all too good to be true. But she also felt something else, hope, and maybe it was time to give hope a chance. On Sunday morning, Marion called Raphael. Gabriel likes popcorn and ice cream, and he loves Central Park. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Raphael's voice filled with contained emotion. "Then let's go to the park, popcorn and ice cream included." They arranged to meet the following Saturday. Throughout the week, Marion prepared Gabriel carefully. She explained that a friend of hers would like to meet him, someone nice she worked with. Gabriel, curious like any child, asked a million questions. Marion answered them all patiently, but avoided defining Raphael as anything more than a friend. It was still too early for that. When Saturday arrived, Marion was more nervous than Gabriel. They met at the park entrance at noon. Raphael appeared dressed casually, jeans and a polo shirt, without his usual corporate air. He looked younger, more approachable, and when he saw Gabriel, he knelt down to the boy's height and extended his hand. "Hi, Gabriel, I'm Raphael. Your mom told me you're great at math." Gabriel, a little shy at first, shook Raphael's hand. But the shyness didn't last long. Raphael had a natural way with children, something Marion didn't expect. He didn't treat Gabriel like a baby or a miniature adult. He talked to him as an equal, but with the sensitivity to understand he was speaking with a child. They spent the entire afternoon at the park. They played ball, rode bikes, had ice cream and popcorn. Raphael bought Gabrielle a remote control car from a toy stall, and the boy was radiant. Marion watched everything from a distance, feeling her chest tighten with emotion. Seeing her son happy, laughing without worries, was all she had ever wanted. And seeing Raphael genuinely trying to make Gabriel smile touched her in a way she didn't expect. As the sun began to set, they sat on a bench near the lake. Gabriel played with his new car a few meters away, still full of energy. Raphael looked at Marion and smiled. "He's amazing, smart, polite, funny. You're doing an exceptional job as a mother." Marion felt her eyes sting. I try. It's not always easy. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough, that he deserves more than I can give. Raphael took her hand, intertwining their fingers. He has the love of a mother who would do anything for him. That's more valuable than any material thing, and that's why he's becoming such a good person. Marion let the tears fall. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief, of knowing that someone saw her effort, recognized her struggle. Raphael put his arm around her shoulders, gently pulling her close. And there, sitting on that bench while Gabriel played happily, Marion allowed herself to relax for the first time in a long time. When they finally said goodbye, it was already dark. Raphael insisted on taking them home. In the car, Gabriel chattered non-stop about the wonderful day they had had. When they arrived at the building, the boy spontaneously hugged Raphael. "Thanks for the gifts. You're cool." Raphael hugged the boy back, and Marion saw genuine emotion in his eyes. "It was a pleasure, champ. I hope we can hang out again soon." Gabriel waved as he ran up the stairs. Marion stood for a moment alone with Raphael at the building entrance. "Thank you. For everything. For being so kind to him. No need to thank me. It was one of the best days I've had in a long time." They looked at each other for a long moment, and then, slowly, Raphael leaned in and kissed Marion's forehead. A soft kiss, full of tenderness. It wasn't a passionate kiss, but it was something more. It was a promise. It was respect. It was connection. "Good night, Marion." "Good night, Raphael." She went up the stairs feeling complete in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Gabriel was already in his room, organizing his new toys. Marion prepared dinner, bathed her son, and put him to sleep. When she finally went to her own room, she lay down and stared at the ceiling for a long time. She was scared, yes, but she was also happy, and maybe it was time to allow herself to be happy. However, happiness never comes without complications. On Monday morning, when Marion arrived at the office, she noticed that something was different. Her colleagues, especially Lucy and Beatrice, two women who had always been cordial but distant, looked at her with evident disapproval. During the morning coffee break, Marion overheard fragments of conversation when she entered the pantry. "She thinks no one notices, but it's obvious. What's happening?" "Yeah, she just appears out of nowhere, gets the most important project, and now she's going out with the client on weekends. Must be nice to have shortcuts in life, right?" Marion stopped at the door, her blood boiling. She thought about confronting them, but decided it wasn't worth it. She grabbed her coffee and left in silence. But the words hammered in her head all day. Was that how everyone saw her? As an opportunist? As someone who used relationships to get ahead in life? In the afternoon, Mrs. Helen called Marion into her office. The supervisor had a worried expression on her face. "Marion, I need to talk to you about a delicate matter." Marion's heart sank. "I've been hearing some comments about you and Mr. Alistair. Comments suggesting there's more than a professional relationship between you." Marion felt her face flush with indignation. "And what do you think, Mrs. Helen?" The supervisor sighed. "I think you are a competent professional and that your work speaks for itself. But I also know how the corporate world works. Appearances matter. And I need you to be careful. I don't want your name to be tarnished by unfounded gossip." Marion took a deep breath, trying to control her anger. "My personal life is my own, Mrs. Helen. As long as I fulfill my professional obligations, and I have been fulfilling them, I don't see a problem." "There's no problem. But there are consequences. Think about it." Marion left the office furious. Consequences. There were always consequences for women who dared to seek happiness, never for men. If Raphael were dating someone, no one would question it. But she, a single woman with a child, was judged for every choice she made. That night, Marion was so tense that she could barely concentrate in her college class. When she returned home late, she found a message from Raphael. "Are you okay? You seem distant today." She thought about not answering, about keeping it to herself. But then she remembered what he had said about honesty and transparency. She called him. Raphael answered on the first ring. "Marion, what happened?" And then she broke down. She told him about the comments, about the conversation with Mrs. Helen, about how she felt judged and exposed. Raphael listened in silence. When she finished, there was only the sound of his breathing on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "I'm so sorry you're going through this because of me. It's not your fault. It's the world we live in. Women are always judged more harshly. But I can do something about it. I can talk to Mrs. Helen, make it clear that—" "No, please don't do that. It will only make things worse. It will make it seem like I need you to defend me, and I don't." "Then what do you want me to do?" Marion took a deep breath. "I need some time. To think. To understand if this is worth it. If I can handle all this judgment." There was a long silence on the other side. When Raphael spoke, his voice was filled with contained emotion. "I understand, and I will respect that. But I want you to know one thing, Marion. Since you came into my life, everything has become lighter, more real, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. But I also won't be selfish. If you need space, I'll give it to you. Just don't disappear completely, okay?" "I won't disappear. I just need time." "How much time?" "I don't know, a few weeks maybe." "All right, I'll be here when you're ready." They hung up, and Marion felt empty. Had she done the right thing? Or was she just letting fear win? She didn't know. All she knew was that she needed to protect herself and Gabriel, and if that meant taking a step back, then that's what she would do. The following weeks were torturous. Raphael kept his distance as promised. He only sent short, spaced-out messages just to check if she was okay. At work, Marion delved even deeper into the project, determined to prove she deserved to be there. Her ideas were brilliant, her presentations impeccable. Even Lucy and Beatrice had to admit, albeit reluctantly, that she was good at what she did. But something had changed in Marion. The lightness had disappeared. She was back in survival mode, functioning on autopilot. Gabrielle noticed and became worried. "Mum, isn't Uncle Raphael visiting us anymore?" "He's busy, my love." "But I liked him." "You liked him too." Marion hugged her son, feeling her heart ache. "I liked him too. I still do. It's complicated." "Why do adults always say things are complicated?" Marion didn't know how to answer. Perhaps because things really were complicated, or perhaps because adults made everything more complicated than it needed to be. It was on a Friday, almost a month after that conversation with Raphael, that everything changed. Marion was at home preparing dinner when Gabriel grabbed his coat and backpack. "I'm going downstairs to play with the others, Mom." "All right, but be back before it gets dark." Gabriel ran out. Marion continued cooking, distracted. Half an hour later, the neighbor knocked on the door, breathless. "Marion, have you seen Gabriel?" The children said he left the building. Alone, but no one knows where he went. Marion's world collapsed. She dropped everything and ran downstairs, asking everyone if they had seen her son. Nothing. Gabriel had simply disappeared. Marion felt panic take over. She called the police, friends, acquaintances. She ran through the neighborhood streets screaming her son's name. Her heart shattered. That's when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered with trembling hands. "Hello? Marion, it's Raphael. Gabriel is with me. He's safe." Her legs gave out, and she had to lean against a lamppost. "Where? How?" "He came to my office. He took a bus by himself. He left a note at the front desk of your building saying he needed to talk to me. Marion, he was scared. He said he noticed you were sad and that it was because of me, that he wanted things to go back to how they were before." Marion started to cry. From relief, from fear, from emotion. "Where are you?" "At my apartment. I'll send you the address. Come pick him up." Half an hour later, Marion was at the door of Raphael's apartment. He opened it, and she rushed in. Gabriel was sitting on the sofa, eating pizza, his eyes red from crying. When he saw his mother, he ran into her arms. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I just wanted you to smile again." Marion hugged her son with all the strength she had, crying uncontrollably. Raphael stood there watching the scene, his own eyes moist. After Marion managed to calm down a little, she looked at Raphael. "Thank you for finding him, for being here. I'll always be here. for both of you. And at that moment, Marian understood something fundamental. The fear of being judged, the fear of getting hurt, all of that was valid. But it wasn't worth losing something real because of fear. It wasn't worth depriving Gabriel of joy, depriving herself of happiness because of others' opinions. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice still trembling. "Of course. Gabriel can watch cartoons here while we talk." They went to the apartment's balcony. The view was breathtaking, the illuminated city spread out before them. Marian took a deep breath before speaking. "I was scared. Scared of not being enough for you. Scared that people were right, that I was just another woman trying to take advantage. Scared of giving myself completely, and you realizing you deserved someone better." Raphael took her hands in his. "You are more than enough, Marian. You are exactly what I needed. Someone real. Someone who challenges me. Someone who makes me want to be better. And as for other people, they will always talk, they will always judge, but their opinion doesn't matter. What matters is what we feel for each other." "And what do you feel?" "I feel like you were tailor-made for me. And I know it sounds cliché, but it's true. Since that day at the pharmacy, something changed in me, and I don't want to go back to being who I was before I met you." Marian felt tears stream down again, but this time they were tears of happiness. "I don't want to either. I don't want to go back to just surviving. I want to truly live. With you." Raphael pulled her into a tight embrace, and Marian allowed herself to fully relax for the first time in weeks. There, in his arms, with her son safe inside the apartment, she finally understood what it meant to be home. It wasn't a physical place. It was a feeling. It was being next to someone who made her feel complete. When they finally went back inside, Gabriel was asleep on the sofa. Raphael carefully picked him up and carried him to the guest room. Marian covered her son and kissed his forehead. Then she and Raphael stood there watching the boy sleep side by side. "He's strong, just like his mother," Raphael said. "He's everything to me." "I know, and I promise to take good care of both of you, if you let me." Marian looked at Raphael and smiled, a genuine smile free from fear. "I let you." And that night, for the first time in years, Marian slept with the certainty that she was no longer alone, that there was someone by her side willing to face challenges with her, and that maybe, just maybe, she deserved that happiness as much as anyone else. The decision to start over with Raphael brought a new energy to Marian's life. Days seemed more colorful, mornings less tiring. Even with the intense routine of work, college, and caring for Gabriel, she felt lighter. Raphael integrated into their lives naturally, without forcing, without rushing. Simple dinners at Marian's apartment. Sunday, strolls in the park, helping Gabriel with homework. Small gestures that built something solid, something real. At work, Marian continued to give her best. The project with Alistair Investments was progressing exceptionally well, and even the most envious colleagues had to acknowledge her competence. But the comments didn't stop completely. They just became more subtle, more veiled. Glances exchanged when she mentioned Raphael, fake smiles when she talked about meetings with him. Marian had learned to ignore them. She had more important things to worry about. It was on a Thursday afternoon that Raphael made an invitation that left Marian apprehensive. He called during her lunch break, his voice filled with contained enthusiasm. "Marian, there's a charity event next Saturday, a gala dinner to raise funds for charities. I would really like you to accompany me." Marian felt her stomach churn. A gala event meant high society, rich and influential people, a world completely different from hers. "Raphael, I don't know. I don't have suitable clothes for that kind of event. I don't know anyone. I'll take care of the clothes, and as for not knowing anyone, you'll know me, and that's enough. Marian, I want you to be there with me. I want the important people in my life to meet the most important person of all." His words touched her deeply, but fear was stronger. Fear of being judged, of not belonging, of being humiliated. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but think with your heart, not with fear." Marian spent the next few days tormented by the decision. She talked to her neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, a 60-year-old woman who had always been like a mother to her since she became a widow. Mrs. Carmen was direct. My dear, if you love this man and he loves you, what does it matter what others think? You deserve to be happy. You deserve to have someone by your side. Don't let fear ruin that. Marian knew Mrs. Carmen was right. On Friday night, she called Raphael. I'll go. To the event. There was so much relief and joy in his voice that Marian smiled. You won't regret it, I promise. On Saturday morning, a team of hairdressers and makeup artists appeared at Marian's apartment. Raphael had arranged everything. She tried to protest, saying it was too much, but he insisted he wanted her to feel special. And she truly did. When she finished getting ready and looked in the mirror, she barely recognized her own image. The dress was long, dark blue, elegant without being ostentatious. Her hair was styled in a sophisticated bun. Her makeup enhanced her natural features. She was beautiful, truly beautiful. Gabriel gasped when he saw her. Mom, you're beautiful. You look like a princess. Marian laughed and hugged her son, being careful not to wrinkle her dress. Mrs. Carmen would stay with Gabriel for the night, and the boy was already excited about the idea of making popcorn and watching movies with the neighbor. Raphael arrived at 7 sharp. When Marian opened the door, she saw his expression change. He looked at her from head to toe, undisguised admiration in his eyes. You are stunning. Thank you. You are very elegant too. And he was. Raphael wore an impeccable tuxedo, his hair slicked back, a dark blue bow tie that matched her dress. They looked like they had stepped out of a magazine. The event was at a 5-star hotel in the Upper East Side. When they arrived, Marian felt her legs tremble. There were photographers at the entrance, security guards, a red carpet. It was all much bigger and more intimidating than she had imagined. Raphael noticed her nervousness and held her hand firmly. Breathe. You are beautiful, you are incredible, and I am by your side. There is nothing to fear. Marian nodded and took a deep breath. They entered together. The ballroom was magnificent, with crystal chandeliers, tables decorated with lush flowers, a string quartet playing classical music in the background. There were hundreds of people, all elegantly dressed, conversing in small groups. Marian recognized some faces from television, famous entrepreneurs, socialites. She felt completely out of place. Raphael introduced her to several people, businessmen, investors, business partners. Everyone was polite to her, but Marian noticed the appraising glances, especially from the women. They analyzed her from head to toe, trying to figure out who this unknown woman beside Raphael Maxwell Alistair was. That's when she saw her. A tall woman, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a tight red dress, very expensive jewelry. She walked towards them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Raphael tensed beside Marian. Camilla, he said, his voice neutral. Raphael, what a surprise to see you here. I thought you were avoiding social events lately. I was just busy. The woman, Camilla, turned her attention to Marian, her blue eyes cold and calculating. And who is your companion? I don't recall us being introduced. Marian, this is Camilla Vance. Camilla, Marian Silver. Nice to meet you, Marian said, extending her hand. Camilla shook her hand with unnecessary force, the artificial smile still on her face. The pleasure is mine. Silver, you said. From which family? Marian blinked, confused. Family? I don't understand. Camilla laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound. Darling, at events like this, it's important to know which family people come from, but perhaps you're not used to this kind of situation. Raphael stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Camilla, I suggest you be more polite. Oh, relax, Raphael. It's just curiosity. After all, after our engagement ended, everyone was curious to know who would be next, and I must admit I was surprised. Very different from your usual type. Marian felt her blood boil. So this was his ex-fiancée. Raphael had never mentioned details, only said he had a serious relationship in the past that didn't work out. Now she understood why. Raphael tried to pull Camilla away and take Marian elsewhere, but the woman continued speaking, now in a louder voice, attracting the attention of nearby people. It's truly touching, Raphael. You've always had such a generous heart, helping the less fortunate, giving opportunities. I heard your new companion is a widow, works as an assistant, and is paying off debts left by her husband. What a moving story, almost a work of charity. The ballroom fell silent. Everyone around stopped to watch. Marion felt her face burn with humiliation. How did Camilla know all this? Who had told her? Tears threatened to fall, but she blinked hard to hold them back. She wouldn't give her the satisfaction of showing weakness. Raphael was furious, his jaw clenched. Camilla, you've crossed the line. Just speaking the truth, darling. People have the right to know who you're getting involved with. After all, your reputation is at stake. Marion felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her feet. Everyone was looking at her now. Some with pity, others with disdain, others with morbid curiosity. She was a spectacle, an intruder in that world of luxury and privilege. She felt small, insignificant, exposed. "Excuse me," she managed to say, her voice trembling. She left the ballroom almost running, tears finally streaming down her face. Raphael followed her, calling her name, but she didn't stop. She reached the ladies' room and locked herself in a stall, sobbing uncontrollably. How naive she had been to think she could belong to that world. How foolish she had been to imagine she would be accepted. Soft knocks on the stall door made her lift her head. "Marion, it's Sophia. May I come in?" Marion didn't know any Sophia, but the voice was gentle, concerned. She slowly opened the door. A woman in her 50s, elegant but with kind eyes, stood there. "I saw what happened. Camilla Vance is known for being cruel. Don't take her words seriously." "But she wasn't lying. I am everything she said. A widowed assistant with debts. I don't belong here." Sophia took Marion's hand gently. "My dear, I grew up in a humble tenement building in Harlem. Today, I own one of the largest hotel chains in the country. Do you know what I learned? That where you start doesn't determine where you'll end up, and that people like Camilla are so afraid of losing their privileges that they attack anyone they consider a threat. You are a threat to her because Raphael chose you, and that terrifies her." Sophia's words brought some comfort, but the pain was still there, pulsating. "I don't know if I can go back out there." "You don't have to, but you also don't have to run away. Raphael is out there, desperate. Go talk to him. Decide what to do later." Marion wiped her face, fixed her smudged makeup, and left the bathroom. Raphael was in the corridor, pacing back and forth. When he saw her, he ran to her and hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't know she would do that. I should have protected you better. It's not your fault. She was right. I don't belong in this world, Raphael." He held her face between his hands, forcing her to look into his eyes. "You belong anywhere you choose to be, and I want you to be by my side. Camilla is a bitter and unhappy person. She doesn't represent this world. There are good people here too, like Sophia." Marion sighed. "I want to leave. Please." "All right, let's go." They left the hotel through a side entrance, avoiding the ballroom. In the car, throughout the ride to Marion's apartment, they remained silent. A heavy silence, laden with unspoken things. When they arrived, Raphael turned off the engine but didn't get out of the car. "Are you going to leave me?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. Marion looked at her hands in her lap. "I don't know. I need to think. What happened today will happen again. People will always judge me, always see me as someone who doesn't deserve to be by your side, and I don't know if I have the strength to face that every time. You are the strongest person I know, Marion. If anyone can face this, it's you. But do I want to? Is it worth it?" Raphael took her hand. "I think so. But the decision is yours. I just want you to know one thing. I love you. I don't know when it happened exactly, whether it was that day at the pharmacy or if it grew little by little. But it happened. And I don't want to lose you. But I also won't force you to stay in a place where you don't feel happy." His words hit her like a punch to the chest. He loved her. And she loved him too, she realized at that moment. She loved his kindness, his honesty, the way he treated Gabriel, the way he made her feel seen and valued. But would love be enough to overcome all that? I need time, she finally said. How much time? I don't know. A few days, maybe. All right. I'll be waiting. Marion got out of the car and entered the building without looking back. If she looked, she wouldn't have the strength to let him go. The following days were torturous. At work, the glances changed. People had found out about the event, about the scene Camilla had made. The comments came back in full force. They said she had been embarrassed, that she had been put in her place, that Raphael would certainly break up with her now. Marion tried to concentrate on work, but it was difficult. Even Mrs. Helen seemed more distant. Gabriel noticed something was wrong. He asked about Raphael several times, and Marion made up excuses. She said he was traveling, busy, that they would see him again soon. But the boy was smart, and realized she was sad. On Wednesday night, after putting Gabriel to sleep, Marion sat in the living room with a cup of tea and finally allowed herself to cry. She cried for the humiliation she had felt, for the complicated life she had, for the love she had found but which seemed impossible to maintain. She cried until she had no more tears. That's when she heard knocking at the door. It was almost 11 at night. Who could it be? She got up, quickly wiped her face, and opened the door. It was Raphael. He looked different. His hair was disheveled. He had stubble. His eyes were red as if he had also been crying. He was wearing only a sweatshirt and jeans, without his usual elegance. Raphael, what are you doing here? He entered without asking permission, closed the door behind him, and looked at her with an intensity that left her breathless. I can't take it anymore. I can't stand being away from you. These days have been hell. I tried to give you space. I tried to respect your time, but I can't. I need you, Marion. I need you so much. It's killing me. Raphael, no. Let me speak. I know that night was horrible. I know Camilla hurt you. I know my world can be cruel and judgmental. But I also know I don't want to live without you. I don't want to wake up without knowing if I'll see you. I don't want to spend weekends without Gabriel showing me his school grades. I don't want to eat dinner alone thinking about what you and he are eating. I want to be present. I want to be with you both. Marion felt the tears return. And I want to too. But I'm so scared. Scared of not being enough for you. Scared of Gabriel suffering if this doesn't work out. Scared of giving myself completely and you realizing you deserve someone better. Raphael took a step forward and held her face in his hands. You are enough. More than enough. And Gabriel is an incredible boy who deserves to have someone who loves him as I do. As for deserving someone better, there's no one better than you. You are real, Marion. In a world full of masks and falsehood, you are authentic, and that's what makes me love you so much. They kissed, a desperate kiss filled with longing, fear, and hope. When they finally separated, both were crying. Marion rested her forehead against his and whispered, I love you too. I'm so scared, but I love you. Then let's be scared together, but we won't give up. They spent the night talking in the living room, sitting on the sofa, embraced. Raphael told her more about his past, about his engagement to Camilla, which had always been more of a business alliance than true love, about how suffocated he had felt in that relationship. Marion talked about her husband, about the financial difficulties he had left behind, about how she had learned to be strong because she had no other choice. When the sun began to rise, they were still there, entangled in each other. Gabriel woke up and ran into the living room. When he saw Raphael, his eyes lit up with joy. Raphael, you're back! Raphael opened his arms and the boy jumped into his lap. I'm back, champ, and I'm not leaving again. Gabriel looked at his mother, then at Raphael and smiled. That's good. Mom was very sad without you. Marion laughed through her tears. Shall we have breakfast? I need to get you ready for school. While preparing pancakes with Gabriel and Raphael talking animatedly at the table, Marion felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, complete and absolute peace. There were still challenges ahead, she knew. People's judgment wouldn't disappear overnight, but now she was sure it was worth fighting for, because true love was too rare to be wasted on fear. On Friday, Marion arrived at the office with a new determination. Mrs. Helen called her in early. Marion, we need to talk about the project. I have some bad news. Mr. Alistair has requested that someone else take your place in the coordination. Marian's heart sank. So this was it. He was professionally distancing himself from her to avoid more gossip. I understand, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. But Mrs. Helen continued. He requested this because he wants you to work directly for his company, as a special projects manager, with a salary 3 times higher than you earn here. Marian's eyes widened. What? He said your work was exceptional and that it would be a waste to keep you in an assistant position. He said, you have potential for much more. The choice is yours, Marian. You can accept the offer or continue here. Marian didn't know what to say. It was an incredible professional opportunity, but she was also afraid that people would think she was accepting it only because of the relationship. Can I think about it? Of course, but don't take too long. It's a rare offer. Marian pondered all day. At lunchtime, she went to a nearby cafe and called Raphael. Why did you do that? Do what? The job offer. Because you deserve it. Because your work was impeccable and I need someone with your skills on my team. And before you ask, no, it's not favoritism. It's recognition of merit. People will say it's because of our relationship. And they'll keep saying things anyway. The question is, are you going to let others' opinions dictate your choices, or are you going to seize opportunities when they arise? Marian took a deep breath. He was right. She was tired of letting fear win. I'll accept, but with one condition, which is, I want to be evaluated like any other employee. If my work isn't good enough, I want to be fired. No favoritism. Raphael laughed. Deal, but I guarantee it won't be necessary. You're too good to fail. The following week, Marian started working at Alistair Investments. The first few days were challenging. The team watched her with suspicion, clearly thinking she was there only because she was the boss's girlfriend. But Marian was determined to prove her worth. She worked harder than everyone else, arrived early, left late, presented innovative ideas. Gradually, the team began to respect her, not because of her connection with Raphael, but because of her own merit. Raphael remained professional in the office. He treated Marian as he treated all other employees, without favoritism. This was important to her. She needed to know that her success was hers, not a reflection of the relationship. But outside of work, they were a couple. Family dinners, weekend outings, quiet evenings watching movies while Gabriel slept. Raphael became a constant presence in their lives, and Gabriel adored him. He called him Uncle Raphael, but there were already a few times when he almost slipped and said, Dad. Marian saw the sparkle in Raphael's eyes when that happened. One Saturday night, after putting Gabriel to sleep, they sat on the small sofa in the apartment. Raphael put his arm around Marian's shoulders, and she snuggled against him. You know what I realized? Raphael said. What? That happiness has nothing to do with money or status. It has to do with moments like this, with being next to someone you love, with hearing a child's laughter, with feeling like you belong somewhere. Marian smiled. You always belonged here, since that day at the pharmacy. Raphael kissed the top of her head. And you always belonged in my heart, since that same day. They stayed there, embraced, in comfortable silence. Outside, the city continued its frantic pace. But inside, in that small apartment in Brooklyn, there was peace, there was love, there was family, and that was all that mattered. Marian knew there would still be challenges. Society would continue to judge, people would continue to talk, but now she had the strength to face them, because she was no longer alone. She had Raphael by her side. She had Gabriel growing up happy and safe, and she had herself, stronger and more confident than ever. The journey was still far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Marian was not afraid of the future. She had hope, and hope, she had discovered, was the most powerful thing anyone could have. The months that followed brought a stability that Marian never imagined possible. The routine had adjusted naturally. Gabriel was happy with excellent grades in school and increasingly attached to Raphael. At work, Marian had earned genuine respect from the team. Her innovative ideas had resulted in 2 important contracts for Alistair Investments, and even the most skeptical employees acknowledged that she deserved to be there. Raphael continued to be her safe harbor. In moments of insecurity, which still occasionally appeared, he was there to remind her how capable she was. On days of exhaustion, when she came home drained from rushing between work and college, he would appear with dinner ready and a comforting smile. And with Gabriel, he had developed a connection that went far beyond the role of a mother's boyfriend. He was a constant presence, a supportive figure, someone the boy trusted completely. But not everything was perfect. The wounds of the past still bled occasionally. It was on a Wednesday afternoon, as Marion was organizing some old documents at home, that she found the box. It was at the back of the closet, stored for years. Inside, letters and papers from her late husband. She had never had the courage to go through everything, only put it away after his death. Now, feeling stronger, she finally decided to do that emotional clearing. Among receipts and bank statements, she found something that made her heart stop. A credit card statement from months before her husband's passing. Expenses at hotels, expensive restaurants, jewelers. None of that had been shared with her. No gifts, no romantic dinners. Where had that money gone? With trembling hands, Marion continued searching. She found more statements, all hidden, all with suspicious expenses. And then she found the messages, printouts of conversations he had kept for some reason. Conversations with a woman named Letitia. Affectionate, intimate messages, promising dates, talking about a future together. Marion felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The husband she had mourned, for whom she had cried so many nights, was not who she thought he was. He had betrayed her. And worse, he had incurred enormous debts to support that other parallel life. The debts she had been paying religiously for 3 years were the result of betrayals, of lies, of a double life she knew nothing about. Anger came first, an overwhelming fury that made her want to scream, break things, cry until she had no more tears. How dared he? How could he have left her in that situation, with a small child alone, carrying the weight of choices that were not hers? Then came the pain, the feeling of having been deceived, of having wasted years with someone who did not value her. And finally, strangely, came relief. Because now she understood that it hadn't been her fault. That she hadn't been insufficient, hadn't failed as a wife. The problem had never been with her, and in a way that liberated her. It freed her from the guilt she had unconsciously carried, from the feeling that she could have done something different to save that marriage which, she now discovered, had never truly been solid. When Raphael arrived later that night, he found Marion sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by papers, her eyes red, but her face strangely serene. He knelt beside her immediately. What happened? Marion told him everything. She showed him the statements, the messages, the painful truth she had discovered. Raphael listened in silence, holding her hand. When she finished, he pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you went through that. But you know what this means? What? That you are even stronger than I imagined. You survived all this without knowing the truth. Imagine what you can do now that you know. Marion let the tears fall, but they were tears of liberation, not sadness. I paid his debts, all of them. I sacrificed so much to honor commitments that weren't mine, and he didn't even respect me enough, to be honest. But you did it for your integrity, not for him, and that says everything about who you are. You are honest, responsible, principled. He may have been a coward, but you are a warrior. Raphael's words comforted her. That night, he stayed with her, talking late, helping her process everything. When Marion finally fell asleep, emotionally exhausted, it was in his arms. And for the first time since the discovery, she felt that everything was all right, that she could move forward without carrying the weight of a past that was not her responsibility. In the following days, Marion felt a change within herself. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She was lighter, more confident. At work, she presented a bold proposal to expand the company's operations into new markets. The team gave her a standing ovation when she finished the presentation. Raphael, who was discreetly watching from the back of the room, had eyes shining with pride. After the meeting, he called her into his private office. When Marion entered, he closed the door and hugged her. "You were incredible in there." "I was nervous. It's a risky proposal. But brilliant. And you presented it with a confidence I've never seen before." Marion smiled. "I think discovering the truth about the past freed me in some way. I spent so much time feeling inadequate, thinking I owed the world something for having survived. But now I understand that I owe nothing to anyone but myself and Gabriel, and that changes everything." Raphael caressed her face tenderly. "You deserve all the good things life has to offer, and I will do my best to make sure you have them." That weekend, Raphael organized a surprise. He told Marion he wanted to take her and Gabriel to a special place. They left New York City early, driving towards the coast. Gabriel was excited in the back seat, asking endless questions about where they were going. Raphael just smiled mysteriously. They arrived at a beautiful, secluded beach house with ocean views. It was a retreat Raphael had bought years ago, but rarely used. He said he wanted to share that place with the people he loved. The three spent the day at the beach. Gabriel played in the waves, built sandcastles, chased crabs. Marion and Raphael walked along the sand hand in hand, talking about dreams and future plans. At night, after putting Gabriel to sleep, they sat on the porch looking at the sea. The sound of the waves was mesmerizing, relaxing. Raphael held Marion's hand and looked at her intently. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the future." "Me too. Marion, you and Gabriel have completely changed my life. Before you, I just existed. I worked, made money, fulfilled obligations. But I wasn't truly living. Now I wake up every day with purpose. I want to be better. I want to build something real with you both." Marion's heart raced. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want us to be a family, truly. Not just on weekends or at dinners. I want to wake up every day with you. I want to be there when Gabriel goes to sleep. I want to help him with his homework. I want to hear about your day. I want everything." Marion felt her eyes well up with tears. "Raphael, are you sure? It's a big responsibility. Gabriel isn't your biological son. You don't have to take that on." "But I want to. I love that boy as if he were my own. And I love you in a way I never imagined possible. Marion, you're not hearing me. I want to marry you." He stood up and, to her complete surprise, knelt down. From his pocket, he took out a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. It wasn't ostentatious, it wasn't exaggerated. It was perfect. "Marion Silver, will you marry me? Will you agree to build a life with me? Will you agree to let me be Gabriel's father and your companion forever?" Marion was crying profusely now. All the defenses she had built over the years crumbled. Here was a man who truly loved her, who loved her son, who wanted to build a family with her. Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but out of genuine love. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Raphael placed the ring on her finger and pulled her into a deep kiss, filled with promises and hopes. When they separated, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "I need to tell Gabriel," Marion said. "We can tell him together tomorrow morning." And they did. When Gabriel woke up the next day and saw the ring on his mother's finger, his eyes widened. Marion knelt down to his height and calmly and gently explained that she and Raphael were going to get married, that they would be a real family. Gabriel looked at Raphael with a serious expression. "Are you going to be my dad?" "If you let me, yes." The boy was silent for a few seconds that seemed eternal. Then he ran and jumped into Raphael's arms, hugging him with all his might. "I always wanted to have a dad again, and I wanted it to be you." Raphael hugged the boy tightly, his eyes misty. Marion watched them, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. This was her family, imperfect, mended, but real. And it was everything she had ever wished for. The news of the engagement spread quickly. At work, there were mixed reactions. Some colleagues were genuinely happy for Marion. Others, the perpetually envious ones, made malicious comments saying that she had finally gotten what she wanted. Marion no longer cared. She had learned that people dissatisfied with their own lives would always find reasons to criticize the happiness of others. But there was someone who didn't take the news well. Camilla Vance. She appeared at the Alistair Investments office on a Thursday afternoon, asking to speak with Raphael. The secretary tried to warn him beforehand, but Camilla simply stormed into his office. Marion was there, discussing project details, when the door abruptly opened. Camilla entered like a hurricane, her eyes fixed on Raphael. "I need to speak with you. Alone." Raphael stood up, his expression unreadable. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Marion. She is my fiancée and future wife." Camilla laughed, a bitter sound. "Fiancée? You're kidding, aren't you? Raphael, wake up. This woman is a gold digger. She only wants your money." Marion felt anger rising, but Raphael was quicker. He walked to stand between Camilla and Marion, protecting her. "Camilla, I'm going to say this once. What Marion and I have is none of your business. You and I broke up years ago. You no longer have any right over my life. And if you speak of Marion that way again, I will take legal action." Camilla looked at him with hatred in her eyes. "You'll regret this. When she leaves you with nothing, you'll remember I warned you." She turned and slammed the door. Marion was trembling with rage, and Raphael immediately hugged her. "Don't mind her. She's just a bitter person trying to destroy the happiness of others." "I know, but it's hard to hear those things." "I know it is. But I also know you're strong enough not to let it affect you." And Marion truly didn't, because there was something much more important to focus on. She was planning a wedding, and more than that, she was planning a life. Raphael suggested a grand wedding, with all the luxuries his money could buy. But Marion asked for something different. She wanted something small, intimate, just with the people who truly mattered. Raphael agreed without hesitation. After all, the important thing wasn't the party, but the commitment. They spent the following weeks planning every detail. It would be at the beach house at sunset with only close friends and family. Gabriel would be the ring bearer. Mrs. Carmen, the neighbor who had always been like a mother to Marion, would be there. Sophia, the businesswoman who had helped Marion that horrible night of the event, was also invited and accepted with joy. And some colleagues from work who had become true friends. But not everything was resolved. There was still a pending issue that bothered Marion. Her late husband's debts were paid, but she had never sought out Letitia, the woman he was involved with. Part of her wanted answers. She wanted to understand. She talked about it with Raphael one night. "Do you think I should look her up?" Raphael thought for a moment. "I think only you can answer that. But I ask you, what do you expect to gain from that meeting?" Marion reflected. "I think I want closure. I want to look into her eyes and understand what happened. And maybe I also want her to know that I survived, that I won despite everything. Then go. But go knowing that no matter what she says, it doesn't change who you are or what you've achieved." Marion got Letitia's contact information through the old papers and arranged a meeting at a discreet cafe. When the woman arrived, Marion vaguely recognized her. She was younger than Marion, perhaps 5 years, beautiful, but with a tired look, as if life hadn't been kind to her either. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Finally, Letitia spoke. "I know who you are, and I imagine why you asked to meet." Marion nodded. "I found messages. I found out about you two." Letitia lowered her eyes, ashamed. "I'm truly sorry. I didn't know he was married at first. When I found out, I was already involved. He promised he would leave his wife, that he was just waiting for the right moment. I was foolish to believe him." Marion felt a pang of compassion for the woman in front of her. She, too, had been deceived. "Did he leave you with debts, too?" Letitia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "A lot. I'm still paying them off. He said he was investing in a business that would succeed. I took out loans to help him. I never saw that money back." So both had been victims of the same man. Marion felt the anger she held for Letitia dissolve. It wasn't her fault, it was his. It had always been his. "I'm sorry for what you went through too," Marion said sincerely. "You're very generous to say that. I destroyed your marriage." "No. He destroyed it. You were just one of the consequences of his choices, just like me." The Two women talked for over an hour. They shared stories, pains, revelations. When they said goodbye, not as friends but with mutual understanding, Marion felt the last weight lifted from her shoulders. The past was finally over. She could look forward without ties. When she told Raphael about the meeting, he hugged her with pride. "You are an incredible person. Do you know that?" "I'm learning to believe it." The wedding day was approaching. Gabriel was excited. He could barely wait. Mrs. Carmen helped with the preparations, radiant to see her girl so happy. And Marion, despite natural nerves, was at peace. Because she knew she was making the right choice. She was choosing to love again. She was choosing to trust again. She was choosing to live fully, without fear. On the eve of the wedding, Raphael took her to a special dinner, just the two of them. Sitting in the restaurant where they had dined for the first time, he took her hand and said something Marion would never forget. "Tomorrow I will become the luckiest man in the world. But I want you to know that I already consider myself lucky. For finding you in that pharmacy, for you having the courage to confront me, for you having given me a chance despite all obstacles. You don't need to be anything other than what you already are. You are perfect for me exactly as you are." Marion smiled through the tears that insisted on falling. "I'm the one who thanks you, for showing me that I deserve to be happy, for loving my son as if he were your own, for supporting me in every dream. You gave me back to myself, Raphael. You made me remember that I was more than just a survivor." They toasted, to the future, to the challenges that would still come, to the love they had built. And Marion knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she should be, beside the man she loved, about to begin the best phase of her life, a phase built on truth, respect, and unconditional love. And that, she finally understood, was all that truly mattered. The day dawned with a perfect blue sky, not a single cloud. Marion woke up early, her heart pounding with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. It was her wedding day. Beside her, Gabriel was still sleeping, soundly, having insisted on sleeping in his mother's room the night before. She watched her son for a few minutes, thinking about how their lives had changed. That boy she had raised alone for so long would now have a complete family. A father who truly loved him, who chose to be present not out of obligation but out of love. Mrs. Carmen arrived early, bringing fresh coffee and toasted bread. The beach house was being prepared for the ceremony that would take place in the late afternoon. There were flowers being arranged, chairs being set up on the sand, a small structure built for the improvised altar facing the sea. It was simple, but it was exactly what Marion wanted. No ostentation, just love, sincerity, and the people who truly mattered. Gabriel woke up excited, talking non-stop about his responsibilities as a ring-bearer. Raphael had ordered a special suit for him, and the boy couldn't wait to wear it. Marion smiled, seeing her son's excitement. 3 years ago, when she became a widow with a small child, she never imagined they would get here, that she would find love again, that she would have a second chance to build a family. Around 2 in the afternoon, Sophia arrived with a team of hairdressers and makeup artists. She had insisted on taking care of all the details of Marion's preparation, saying it was her gift to the bride. As they worked, Sophia chatted animatedly, telling funny stories and helping Marion relax. Mrs. Carmen watched everything with tears of joy in her eyes. "You are radiant, my dear," the neighbor said. "I've never seen you so happy." "I've never been so happy," Marion replied sincerely. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and discover it was all a dream." "It's not a dream, darling, it's real, and you deserve every second of this happiness." When she was finally ready, Marion looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized her own reflection. The dress was simple but elegant, white with lace details, knee-length, perfect for a beach ceremony. Her hair was loose in soft waves, with small white flowers intertwined. Her makeup enhanced her natural beauty without exaggeration. She was beautiful. More than that, she was happy, and happiness made her shine in a way no makeup could replicate. Gabriel appeared at the bedroom door, already dressed in his small suit, his hair combed back. He looked like a little man. When he saw his mother, his eyes widened. "Mom, you're beautiful. You look like a real princess." Marion knelt down to his height, being careful with her dress. "And you look very elegant, my love. Raphael will be proud." The boy smiled, but then his expression became serious. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, my love." "When you marry Raphael, can I call him Dad?" Marion felt her eyes fill with tears, but blinked quickly to avoid ruining her makeup. "You can call him whatever you feel comfortable with, Gabriel, but I think he would love it if you called him Dad." Gabriel nodded, satisfied, and ran out to check if everything was ready outside. Marion stood there for a moment, her heart overflowing. That boy, who had always been her strength, her reason to continue, would now have the father he always deserved. A father who had chosen him, who loved him not by blood, but by true connection. At 5 in the afternoon, the few guests were all gathered. There were about 20 people sitting in chairs arranged on the sand. The sun began its descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. The sea was calm, the waves gently breaking on the beach. An acoustic guitarist played soft music. It was perfect. Raphael stood beside the improvised altar, visibly nervous. He wore a light beige suit, no tie, with a white shirt. His hair was slightly ruffled by the beach wind. He talked with the officiant, but his eyes constantly returned to the path where Marion would appear. Beside him was Mark, his best friend since childhood, who served as best man. When the music changed, signaling the start of the ceremony, everyone stood up. Gabriel appeared first, carrying the rings on a small white cushion. He walked seriously to the altar, focused on not tripping. When he reached Raphael's side, Raphael affectionately ruffled the boy's hair, making him smile. And then Marion appeared. She came alone, with no one to give her away, because this was a choice she was making for herself. She wasn't being handed from one person to another. She was choosing, consciously, to build a life alongside Raphael. It was a free, mature, autonomous decision. When Raphael saw her, his legs almost gave out. She was stunning, not because of her dress or makeup, but because of the light she emanated. It was pure happiness. It was love. It was peace. And it was everything to him. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't try to hide them. He let everyone see how much that woman meant to him. Marion walked slowly across the sand, her heart pounding. Each step brought her closer to the man she loved, closer to the life she had always dreamed of having. When she finally reached the altar and stood in front of Raphael, he took her hands and whispered, just for her to hear, "You are perfect. You too." The officiant began the ceremony. He spoke of love, of commitment, of the courage to start over. He spoke of how two souls can find each other at the right time, even when the world seems to be against them. His words were simple yet profound, touching the hearts of all present. It was time for the vows. Raphael went first. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice emotional. "Marion, a few months ago I walked into a pharmacy just to solve a simple problem. And I walked out with my life completely transformed. You confronted me that day, challenged me, showed me I was wrong. And since then, you haven't stopped challenging me, showing me better ways to be, to live, to love. You taught me that strength isn't about never falling, but about getting up every time. You taught me that family isn't about blood, but about choice and commitment. You taught me that true love isn't something from fairy tales, but something built day by day, with patience, respect, and honesty. Today, in front of everyone here, I promise to be by your side in all moments, in easy days and difficult ones, in joys and sorrows. I promise to respect your choices, support your dreams, and be your companion in everything. I promise to love Gabriel as my own son, raise him with love and dedication. I promise to be worthy of the trust you placed in me. And I promise every day to remember how lucky I am to have you in my life. You weren't just tailor-made for me. You tailor-made me for this life we will build together." There wasn't a dry eye among the guests. Even Sophia, always so strong, discreetly wiped away tears. Gabriel watched everything carefully, absorbing every word. Now it was Marion's turn. She looked at Raphael, at those eyes that truly saw her, that saw beyond appearances, difficulties, imperfections. And she began to speak. Raphael, for a long time I believed that my role in life was just to survive, to work, pay bills, take care of Gabriel, and repeat it all the next day. There was no room to dream, to desire, to imagine that I could have more. And then you appeared. Annoying at first, I must admit. She smiled, drawing laughter from those present, but also intriguing. You saw me. You truly saw me. Not as a poor widow, not as someone who needed charity, but as a complete, capable, strong person. You made me remember that I wasn't just a mother, just an employee, just a survivor. I was Marion, with dreams, with desires, with a right to happiness. You gave me back to myself. And more than that, you loved my son. Not because you had to love him, but because you genuinely connected with him. And for a mother, there is no greater gift than seeing her child loved and safe. Today, I promise to build a life with you based on truth, without masks, without pretenses. I promise to be your companion in all projects, dreams, and challenges. I promise to support your decisions, respect your space, and at the same time demand the same respect I deserve. I promise that our family will be built on solid foundations of honesty and communication. I promise that we will never go to sleep angry with each other. And I promise every day to remind you how special you are. Not for what you have, but for who you are. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for choosing Gabriel. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to trust again, that it's possible to truly be happy. Raphael was openly weeping now, unashamed. He pulled Marion close and kissed her before the officiant even authorized it, drawing laughter and applause from the guests. When they finally separated, both laughing through their tears, the officiant joked, "Well, I think I can skip to the part about declaring you husband and wife." They exchanged rings. Gabriel delivered them with all seriousness, proud of his role. When Raphael placed the ring on Marion's finger and vice versa, it was like sealing a promise that had already been building for months. It wasn't the beginning of something. It was the continuation of a story that was already being written with love and dedication. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. And Raphael kissed Marion as if it were the first and last time, with passion and tenderness, with promise and gratitude. The guests erupted in applause and shouts of celebration. Gabriel jumped for joy, celebrating as if his team had scored a goal. When the kiss ended and the newlyweds turned to the guests, hand in hand, they were met with a shower of rose petals. They walked back down the improvised aisle on the sand, while the acoustic guitarist played a joyful tune. It was perfect, simple, intimate, true. Exactly as it should be. The celebration continued with a dinner set up right there on the beach. Round tables, soft lighting with candles and fairy lights, delicious food prepared by a chef Raphael had hired. There was laughter, lively conversations, emotional toasts. Sophia gave a beautiful speech about overcoming adversity and deserving happiness. Mark, the best man, told funny stories about Raphael before he met Marion, making everyone laugh. Mrs. Carmen cried throughout her speech, but they were tears of pure joy. And then it was Gabriel's turn. The boy asked for the microphone and everyone fell silent, curious. He looked at his mother and then at Raphael. "I wanted to say thank you. Thank my mum for being the best mum in the world. She works hard, studies hard, and still always has time for me. And I wanted to thank Raphael. You didn't have to like me, but you do. You come to my school presentations, you help me with math even when you're tired, and you make me laugh. So, if it's okay, I'd like to call you Dad, because that's what you are to me." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Raphael quickly stood up and went to Gabriel, kneeling down to the boy's height. He hugged him tightly. "It would be an honor to be called Dad by you, an honor I will carry with pride for the rest of my life." Gabriel hugged Raphael back, and Marion joined the two, forming a group hug. Her family, imperfect, mended, but absolutely real and absolutely perfect for them. The night continued with music and dancing. Raphael and Marion opened the floor with a simple waltz. They weren't professional dancers. They stumbled a few times, laughed at their own mistakes, but no one cared. What mattered was the connection between them, the way they looked at each other, how they moved together, as if they had always been one. As the party began to wind down and guests left one by one, leaving their wishes for happiness, Gabriel was already asleep on the sofa in the house. Mrs. Carmen offered to take him to his room and stay with him for the night, giving the newlyweds privacy. Marian thanked her with a tight hug to the neighbor who had always been so present. Raphael and Marian went for a walk on the beach, still in their wedding clothes, barefoot in the sand. The moon was full, illuminating the sea with a silvery glow. The sound of the waves was the only music they needed. They walked in silence for a while, just enjoying the moment, each other's company. Finally, Raphael pulled Marian close, hugging her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "So, Mrs. Alistair, how do you feel?" Marian laughed. "Actually, I'm keeping my last name Silva, or maybe Silva Alistair. I haven't decided yet." Raphael laughed too. "You can call yourself whatever you want as long as you're my wife." Always. Forever. They stayed there, embraced, watching the sea. Marian thought about everything she had been through to get there. The difficulties, the losses, the pains, but also the victories, the triumphs, the joys. Every scar, every tear, every moment of despair had been necessary to mold her into the person she was today, a strong, capable person, deserving of love. "You know what I realized?" Marian said. "What?" "That life isn't about having a perfect path. It's about finding meaning in the imperfect path we have. I spent so long thinking I needed to be perfect, to have everything figured out, to deserve to be happy. But the truth is, I'm happy with my imperfections, with my struggles, because they brought me to you." Raphael turned her to face him, his hands on her face. "And you brought me back to life. You showed me that success isn't measured in money or power, but in real connections, in true love, in simple moments that make us feel complete." They kissed, a slow and deep kiss, filled with promises for the future. When they separated, Marian rested her head on Raphael's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I'm scared sometimes," she confessed, "scared that something will ruin this, scared of losing what we've built. I'm scared too. But you know what I learned? That fear is part of it. It means we have something valuable to lose, but we won't let fear paralyze us. We'll face it together, always together." "Always together," Marian repeated. They walked back to the house hand in hand. Mrs. Carmen was dozing in an armchair next to the room where Gabriel was sleeping. Marian covered her with a light blanket and went to the room she would share with Raphael from then on. It was the official beginning of their lives as husband and wife. In the months that followed the wedding, Marian and Raphael's life found a comfortable rhythm. They decided to live in the house Raphael owned in a quiet New York City neighborhood, a house with a yard where Gabriel could play. It wasn't the mansion he could have afforded, but it was a home, and that was what mattered. Marian continued working at Alistair Investments, now as Director of Strategic Projects. Her ascent was based purely on merit. The proposals she had presented in recent months had resulted in significant profits for the company. Even the most skeptical had to acknowledge her competence, and the malicious comments almost completely ceased. Or perhaps Marian had simply stopped caring about them. Raphael, for his part, discovered a new purpose beyond business. He started a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs from underserved communities, inspired by Sophia's story and Marian's own journey. He wanted to give opportunities to people who, like her, had potential but lacked resources. Gabriel flourished in the new environment. He had his own room, a space to play, and above all, he had a complete family. Raphael was present at every school presentation, every soccer game, every important moment. And the boy reciprocated with unconditional love, now naturally calling him Dad without hesitation. One day, about 6 months after the wedding, Marian received an unexpected call. It was Camilla Vance. At first, she thought about not answering, but curiosity got the better of her. "Hello? Marian, it's Camilla. I know you weren't expecting my call." "I really wasn't." There was a pause. Then Camilla continued, her voice less arrogant than Marian remembered. I called to apologize for what I did at that event, for the malicious comments, for everything. I have no excuses for my behavior. I was cruel, and I was wrong. Marion remained silent, processing. Why are you telling me this now? Because I finally understood. I spent months bitter, angry, feeling wronged. But the truth is, I never loved Raphael the way you do. To me, he was security, status, comfort. To you, he is a companion. And he deserved that. He deserved someone who loved him for who he is, not for what he has. So, truly, I apologize. And if I may, I wish you happiness. Marion took a deep breath. She could hold a grudge. She could refuse the apology. But what would be the purpose? Anger only poisoned those who carried it. I accept your apology, Camilla, and I wish you happiness too. I hope you find what you're looking for. Truly. Thank you. And Marion, take good care of him. He's a good man. I will. You can be sure of that. When she hung up, Marion felt a lightness. Another page turned, another cycle closed. Life moved forward, and she was ready to move with it. At college, Marion finally graduated with a degree in business administration. Raphael, Gabriel, and Mrs. Carmen were in the audience when she walked across the stage to receive her diploma. She cried, not from sadness, but from accomplishment. How many times had she thought of giving up? How many nights had she studied late, tired, thinking she wouldn't make it? But she had. She had proven to herself that she was capable of anything when she dedicated herself. After graduation, Raphael made a proposal. Marion, you've proven you have everything it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Have you ever thought about starting your own business? My own business. I wouldn't have the initial capital for that. But I do. And I can invest. Not as a husband, but as an investor. Present me with a solid business plan, and if it makes sense, I'll invest. With a formal contract, accountability, or professional. Marion was tempted, but she was hesitant. People will say it's favoritism. And they'll keep saying things anyway. The question is, are you going to let others' opinions dictate your life? Or are you going to seize opportunities when they appear? Marion thought for a few days. She did research, talked to Sophia, who had become a mentor, and finally decided. She would open a consulting firm specializing in management for small and medium-sized businesses. Her target audience would be entrepreneurs like she had been, talented people without resources who needed accessible professional guidance. She presented the business plan to Raphael, who evaluated it with professional rigor. He asked difficult questions, pointed out flaws, suggested improvements. When he finally approved it, he did so as an investor, not as a husband, and Marion signed a formal contract, committing to accountability, generating profit, and treating it like any other business. Silver & Associates consulting firm was born 6 months later. It started small, just Marion and an assistant, working from a modest office, but the work was excellent. Clients came by referral, satisfied with the results. Gradually the company grew. Marion hired more people, moved to a larger office, expanded services, and most importantly, she made sure to pay back every penny Raphael had invested, with interest. Not because he demanded it, but because it was important for her to prove she could, that her success was hers, built with her own effort. When she handed him the last check, fully settling the investment, Raphael looked at her with pride. You didn't have to. I would have waited as long as necessary. But I needed to, for myself, to know I did it. He kissed her, proud of the woman he had by his side. Years passed. Gabriel grew up, becoming a responsible and caring teenager. He called Raphael Dad without even thinking about it anymore. It was natural, it was real. Their relationship was beautiful to behold. Raphael was present in every phase of the boy's life, from the discoveries of adolescence to questions about the future. Marion's company prospered, becoming a benchmark in its segment. She began giving lectures, being invited to events, being recognized for her own merit. And every time she told her story, she inspired other women to believe in themselves, not to give up, to know that it was possible to start over. Raphael continued to manage his businesses, but now with a different perspective. It was no longer just about profit. It was about impact, about making a difference. The mentorship program he had created had already helped hundreds of young people achieve their dreams, and together, Marian and Raphael built something that went beyond a marriage. They built a partnership, a team, a family based on mutual respect, unconditional support, and love that grew stronger every day. There were difficult moments, of course, discussions about finances, about raising Gabriel, about important decisions. But they always talked, always resolved things. They never went to bed angry, as they had promised, and they always reminded each other how lucky they were to have found each other. On their wedding anniversary, 5 years after that beach ceremony, they returned to the same place. They left Gabriel with Mrs. Carmen and went just the two of them, wanting to relive that special moment. They walked along the same beach, now more mature, with a few more wrinkles, some grey hairs appearing. But the love between them was even stronger, tempered by years of companionship, by challenges overcome together, by shared joys. 5 years, Raphael said. It seems like a lot and a little at the same time. I know, I feel like I've known you my whole life, but at the same time, it feels like it was yesterday we were arguing in that pharmacy. Raphael laughed. Best argument of my life. Worst argument of mine, Marian joked. You were unbearable. Was? Past tense? Marian playfully pushed him, and they ended up falling onto the sand, laughing like teenagers. When they finally calmed down, they lay side by side, looking at the stars. Marian, there's something I want to tell you. She turned her head to look at him. What? Thank you. For giving me a chance. For believing in me when it was easier to give up. For building this life with me. You gave me a family. You gave me purpose. You gave me true love. I am the luckiest man in the world. Marian felt her eyes well up with tears. I'm the one who thanks you, for showing me that I deserve to be happy, for loving my son as if he were your own, for supporting me in every dream. You gave me back to myself, Raphael. You made me remember that I was more than just a survivor. They kissed, a long and deep kiss, filled with years of complicity and love. When they returned home that night, Gabriel was awake waiting. He had news. He had been accepted into a prestigious vocational school on a scholarship. He was radiant, and Marian and Raphael hugged him with pride. That boy, who had grown up facing difficulties, now had a bright future ahead of him. And he had a family that supported him unconditionally. That night, after Gabriel went to sleep, Marian and Raphael sat on the porch of their house drinking tea and talking about future plans. About Gabriel's graduation, still years away, but which they were already planning. About expanding Marian's consulting firm. About perhaps having more children, something they were still considering. About growing old together, seeing grandchildren grow up, building a long and meaningful life. You know what I realized, Marian said. What? That life isn't about getting somewhere. It's about the journey, about the people we meet, the challenges we overcome, the love we build. I always thought happiness was a finish line, but now I understand that it's the whole path. Raphael took her hand, intertwining their fingers. And how lucky we are to be able to walk it together. How lucky we are. They stayed there late, talking, laughing, planning. They didn't know what the future held. There would be challenges, for sure. Difficult moments, probably, but there would also be joys, achievements, moments of pure happiness. And most importantly, they wouldn't be alone. They would have each other. They would have Gabriel. They would have the family they built with so much love and dedication. Years later, when Gabriel would graduate from college and give his thank you speech, he would say something that would make Marian and Raphael cry with emotion. I learned from my mother that strength isn't about never falling, but always getting up. I learned from my father, Raphael, that love isn't biological, it's a choice. And I learned from both of them together that family is what we build, not what we inherit. And at that moment, Marian would understand that everything had been worth it. Every tear, every difficulty, every moment of doubt. Because it had brought her here. to that beautiful, imperfect, but absolutely real family. She would look at Raphael, who would be crying unashamedly, proud of the son he had raised. She would take his hand and squeeze it, in a gesture that said everything without needing words. We made it. Yes, we made it. And hand in hand, they would continue writing their story. A story of love, overcoming, courage. A story that proved it's never too late to start over. That there is always hope, even in the darkest moments. And that true love, the one built with patience, respect, and dedication, is capable of overcoming any obstacle. Because Marian and Raphael weren't perfect. They had flaws, fears, insecurities, but they were perfect for each other. And that, in the end, was all that mattered. Dear listeners, we hope Marian and Raphael's story has touched your heart. If you were moved, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what stood out to you the most. Every day we bring intense stories like this, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.